continue on, what is Madame Gandalf's Twitch channel about? If somebody came to your channel, or if somebody was like, "Why should I watch this Twitch channel?" How would I explain it to people?
Do you like sitting down in the warm, comfy atmosphere of a tavern where you feel like you can put your feet up, have a laugh, have a drink, maybe even let out your sorrows or your anger to your friends or other loved ones, and just feel like people are genuinely caring? That's pretty much what my Green Dragon Tavern is all about. And we do a variety of things because we have such a variety of people who are part of the stream. I do cooking, I do pub quizzes, a veritable quandary of games, and singing, and even IRL travel stuff and painting. We did Bob Ross just the other day. So you can really find a little bit of everything, and everyone's always welcome to come and relax there.
So do you feel like you have a personality on your Twitch channel, or is this is you? Like if you were, if the camera was off, would people be like, "Oh, this is not who I watch on Twitch," or is it somebody like, "Holy shit, you're just like on Twitch"?
It's pretty darn similar. It's pretty darn similar. I may be a little bit more extra me on Twitch, if that makes sense. Like an amped up version of myself. Like when I'm playing video games with my friends, I'll still be there, like making the same kind of facial expressions when I'm scared, like but if I'm in front of the camera, I'm just there like, oh no, oh, I actually like verbally letting it all out. It's like an opera, just letting out the freaking sounds that expel from me with emotion.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
They're
So
pretty similar otherwise. It's really a lot of people have said like, yeah, just the same in person, really.
well, that's good. That's good because some people are like, "Oh, I know this is a fake personality," or some people go to that route on Twitch, which is not fine, which is fine. So whatever floats and fits your boat, cup of tea. There we go. Your fits your
Yeah,
cup of tea.
whatever's your cup of tea, whatever fits your cup of tea, you know.
So you're currently affiliated, correct? Or you're partnered?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Um, on the road to partnership
On the
is the
road to
hope.
partnership. So that's the main goal, is what I was really going to get to, is that you want to become partnered.
It's one of the goals. It's the next step of my goals. I've applied for partnership several times throughout the years that I've been on Twitch, and I always feel like I'm getting like this close, and it gets a little admittedly frustrating at points because there's some numeric figures that I have compared to others where I feel like I get looked over
Hmm.
often. Um, but I have a really
Sorry, I know there's a car in the background. Maybe you can hear it. I don't know.
oh
But
yeah, no, no, that's totally fine. Um, basically, I guess I'll say this. Right now, at around about 280 unique subscribers,
mhm.
and as an affiliate, that is pretty rare. But my viewer count isn't as high as some people would require or consider for partnership.
Mhm.
And whereas there are some others with lower sub counts who have like higher viewer numbers. And what Twitch is focusing on very much at the moment is viewer numbers versus sub count. And the time zone that I stream, I catch the late night Europeans, the early morning Kiwis, the just coming off of work US people, then the Europeans go to bed, and then the US people come in, and then the Kiwis start coming off of work. And so my view account, I don't get everybody at once.
Yeah.
I get that everybody's just going to bed or just coming off work.
Kind of ordeal. Wait.
But
So
So that yeah, it's hard to keep a high number of people, but I have that number of people just at separate times of the day.
no, it's understandable, and we're gonna come back to that point. But the next question I wanted to ask about Twitch, just to keep it a more lighter, not so serious topic,
For sure.
is do you see this as a job in the future? Do you see this as something that you would want to do full time, and you can see yourself being supported off of Twitch, or you're like, this is just kind of like for fun on the side. If I make a little buck here or there, not a big deal.
I currently am full-time. I have been full-time for the last, year and a bit now. I do make enough from Twitch with the people that I have in order to support myself and to, still go, like, traveling and to go to things like TwitchCon. I have an incredibly supportive community.
That
It's mind-blowing.
that is insane. Were you ever nervous? When did you make that jump? Was it hard to like be like, okay, I'm gonna do this full time. Hopefully, it keeps going because Twitch is kind of volatile, if that's a good word for it, because it's like you really don't know the next big thing, maybe, or you really don't know where Twitch is gonna go, or what new policy is
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
come in, or this or that. How did you know you were like? I'm sure you did the math, logistically, of course, but how were you like? All right, I'm confident enough to gonna make the jump, that next jump.
I wasn't enjoying my main job at the time, and I've always tried to stream for mostly full-time hours, and I have had part-time jobs on and off, on the side to get that secure balance in. I used to teach film.
Okay.
I did that for, the best part of last year as a once a week thing. And so that was like my day off. When I was not streaming on Twitch, my day off, I was working at a local university teaching film. And so it was a really like full on busy year. And I did not enjoy that job very much. I never have been confident in teaching. I never wanted to be a teacher. I know how to do the things that I was teaching myself, but I find it much more difficult to try and explain it to others. And I just I didn't like it at all. I met some beautiful people, don't get me wrong, like, some of the students were absolutely incredible people, but I didn't enjoy it, and I would rather make a little less and enjoy what I was doing
Hmm.
than make more, and I still do an odd jobs here and there of photography assisting or, video editing. But for the most part, Twitch is my sole income, and it's not something I would recommend to many people. There's a lot of things that allow me to do that, like, I live at home with my family, for example, and that is a sacrifice I have made in order to continue to do Twitch as a full-time thing.
Hmm.
And I still have to pay rent, I still have to, do things like that, but it is much less expensive than if I was
Living on your own,
living on my own,
and
and I miss living on my own a lot,
I'm I'm sure, I'm
which
sure.
is why Canada, which is why Canada, because that would be just me, and I found that I do make a minimum enough that I could, yeah, afford to sustain myself in Canada soon, so fingers crossed that happens in the not too distant future.
So for people who are like, well, Canada, she was just talking about New Zealand, da, da, da. So people aren't confused. Before we started the recording, I was kind of asking, where she's from and how she ended up where she was at. She was talking about moving, and I'll let you take the floor. So,
I never intended to move back to New Zealand after Oregon. I only had to move back to New Zealand because I had some visa issues with getting my work visa properly sorted there. And so I had to move back to New Zealand, and didn't really want to come back. This was who I was up until the age of 18, and suddenly I was 25 and back here, and I'm not the same person really anymore. At my core, sure, but it was where I grew up, not where I wanted to just continue to figure out who I am. And so a couple of years down the line of just kind of seeing where this Twitch thing goes and things like that, I had an opportunity come up from a friend that I have in Canada. And so I decided to make the plunge, and now I'm waiting for the visa stuff to go through so I can move there shortly. So, ooh, it's exciting.
You're gonna be like the redheaded child to America. It's fine. I understand. Ah man, Canadians. They're you gotta tell us once you move there. They really that nice. Everybody's got that like. They're so nice. They're so great.
I can already tell you, not as nice as they uh, seem to be. And one of my favorite people, he always says how mad he gets when people say like Canadians, they're so polite. He's like, no, no, we're not.
Back to Twitch here. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Do you still see yourself on Twitch? Do you see yourself moving platforms? You say, if I don't get partnered by this time, I'm just gonna say, screw this site and I'm never streaming again.
God damn. I actually would hope to be hosting or being part of something that bridges the gap between internet and video game culture and mainstream media. There's still to this day and age such a huge mistranslation. And you see it on the news, especially all the time, where like this game is a sex simulation. And you're like, you literally picked a 2-minute scene out of a 500-hour game.
Uh, uh,
And like when Pepe the Frog was suddenly like being blasted as being like racist, and you're
hmm
like,
What?
"But who's doing your research here? There's still just a huge gap between them, and I would love to build a bridge and do a show that kind of interweaves the mainstream and the online um, culture as well, and with a heavy focus on video games because back in the day music was so new and so like crazy, and recording it and putting it on vinyl. Ah, no, that was like devil stuff,
Oh yeah,
like why
devil's music. Yeah.
that. It's new, it's scary, rah. And then movies came out and like film came out, and suddenly it's like, oh no, that's scary, that's new, rah. And video games is just basically the new one of that.
Topic. Yeah.
It's new, it's not very well understood. And so instead of it being seen as the art form that it is,
Mhm.
it gets dismayed as just like, oh, it's a game, it's for kids, or if it's not for kids, it's a violence simulator, or a sex simulator, and things like that. So I'm trying to help people understand, like, hey, video games can be this amazing place to birth creativity and a place for escapism, and also a great place for tangential learning. If you are interested in who Sephiroth was in uh, Final Fantasy, suddenly you're like Googling, oh yeah, let's see, Sephiroth. Oh man, Sephiroth isn't just like a Final Fantasy character. He was uh, like an Egyptian god and things like that. You're like looking into what on earth the actual history of the word Sephiroth was.
Mhm.
And so I think it can be a great learning tool as well, just purely, and it's great for teamwork and hand-eye coordination and memory. It's meant to be amazing for your memory and keeping your memory alive. So I there's so many benefits to video games.
Interesting, interesting. That is the first route that I've seen. Like people are always like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in this industry or this industry or stay with Twitch." But it's interesting that you want to educate people, and I think that's awesome. Like you want to be like, "Listen, here's some actual well, not maybe scientific facts, but here's some actual stuff that helps you improve as a person, one way or another. And there's just so much. You mentioned stuff that I didn't even think about,
I
like
just want people to understand me.
no, I understand. It's a big topic there. Which I wanted to talk about Twitch more specifically. But the last question, streaming related wise though, before we dive into Twitch itself more in detail, is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I I'm interested. I've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. I've not played it, and you got your dice there. I see. How did how did this all come about? Because I know you play with Oh Baby 190. You have the dungeon, and you guys are like all over the world almost. Well, not all over the world, but they're all different
Yeah.
parts, different time zones, and like whose idea was it? I have just so many questions. Whose idea? How did you come up with the theme of it? Like,
I originally, when it came to Dungeons and Dragons, I tried to dungeon master a couple of games of my own. I had none of the books, I knew none of the rules or any of that, but I just wanted to get my friends to roleplay a story with me. And a couple of them would get into it, a couple of them wouldn't, and it just never really like took off for more than one session at a time. For the most part, it was like at university, I would just cook everybody a big medieval feast and give them goblets to drink out of, and they would all like sit around and like drink and smoke weed, and we played Dungeons and Dragons. And so that was that was my initial experience of Dungeons and Dragons. Never done it like properly. And then Rachel, oh baby 190, had her competition for subs. Like, hey, I'm gonna start a Dungeons and Dragons group, hand in your characters, and between myself and my dungeon master, we'll pick our like the top 5 or the top 4, I think. Yeah, the top 4, and we're going to stream it. And that was actually my very first real Dungeons and Dragons experience. The first time I ever had my own character that I had built myself. And we actually still play that game to this day. I think actually next week is
hmm.
our last ever session, and it's been 2 years.
Oh,
So that's gonna be really emotional for sure. But yeah, that was all Rachel and, Ben Counter. They came up with Ben, I think it's a homebrew of Ben's, homebrew being, he created the campaign himself.
hmm.
And we are dotted all over the world. I'm here in New Zealand. Chainfail is in Sweden. Death Valley Demon, I believe he's in Saudi Arabia. And then Ben is in the UK, and Rachel and IRL Anime Boy are in the US. So we're completely all over the place. But it works so well, and the group is amazing, and it has really brought us closer together. I don't know if I ever would have really known Rachel, Ben, or any of them as well as I do now. Like Shane and I have literally slept in the same bed together at TwitchCon and like things like that. And I don't know if we would have ever have like felt comfortable enough to do that if it hadn't been for Dungeons and Dragons.
Hmm.
And from there, it just kind of blossomed. Before I knew it, I was on another stream, not so speedruns channel, playing a different kind of D&D game, and getting to know those wonderful people and those wonderful teammates. And then before I knew it, again, I'm suddenly like in Encounter Roleplay. I played Dungeons and Dragons, but right before I came here to do this interview over on Encounter Roleplay, and was doing D&D there. And now I have a D&D show on my own stream,
Hmm.
which Rachel is also involved in. And it's just really mind-blowing to me how much it started from me just like, "I really wanna try this out," and just drinking and smoking with friends, to actually, here I am, like, dice at the table with characters under my belt that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and I even have another group that I do offline, um on Fridays. So it's an addiction. Once you start, once you really get going, it's hard to it's hard to quit. It's hard to quit.
So was it like the timing? How did you guys like plan? Okay, we're gonna stream from here to here. Like, were you involved with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff? Like when it came to like, okay, we need to plan this day. We're gonna play this day. We're streaming from here to here. Like,
It was all on Rachel's side. Like, we're playing Tuesdays starting at 11 a.m. Pacific,
which isn't
and
too bad for you, right? That's like, you
it depended on the time of year. The time difference for us goes from like 3 hours on a day to 5 hours on a day.
ooh, okay.
So sometimes I was waking up super early. Sometimes it was actually not too shabby at all. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. And either way, I was down because I was just delighted to have a chance to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Well,
And
that's
now I actually do the game because we now continue the game offline rather than stream that particular one. And I now get up at 5:30 a.m.
oh, jeez,
Excuse me, my time to play the game at 6 a.m.
damn.
Yeah.
That you must be very dedicated for that because I would be like, I don't want to sleep in. I would be like under my cover, like, just kill me off, do something. I'm poisoned for today. Let me go.
I just can't do it. No.
Uh,
Yeah, it's weird because that's my day off streaming as well. I get up earlier than I do already to stream. So I just love D&D and I love that group. I will always have a that will always have a special place in my heart as my first. You never forget your first.
that is true. Very true.